Heavy rain in Gaza piles further challenges on displaced Palestinians seeking refuge. Israel says 9 of its soldiers have been killed in an urban ambush.
The European Commission says it will unlock €10 billion in cohesion funds for Hungary ahead of a crucial EU leaders summit in Brussels on Thursday.
Poland's new Prime Minister Donald Tusk and his cabinet have been sworn in, ending 8 years of populist rule. As Israel's bombing campaign continues, displaced Palestinians in the Gaza Strip face a new threat: floods. Here in the southern city of Deir al-Balah, torrential rain has wreaked havoc with a refugee camp behind a hospital. Representatives for the United Nations say the humanitarian situation is steadily worsening, calling it hell on earth.
The people of Gaza are running out of time and options as they face bombardment, deprivation and disease in an ever shrinking space. They are facing the darkest chapter of their history since 1948. And it has been a painful history.
Meanwhile, Israel says the war against Hamas militants will continue, with or without international support. This after the IDF says 9 of its soldiers were killed in a Hamas-led ambush. Israel's military also said it has seized weapons and discovered more tunnels in the Jenin refugee camp, but these claims have yet to be verified.
The European Commission says it will unlock €10 billion in cohesion funds for Hungary in what will likely prove a controversial move. Budapest is threatening to veto the EU's Ukraine policy at a crucial summit in Brussels on Thursday. Most of the EU's funds for Hungary were blocked last year due to concerns over the rule of law and corruption in the country. Now the Commission is saying that Budapest has made sufficient progress when it comes to justice reforms and is recommending the release of one part of its cohesion funds.
We as an institution have to follow the rules, right? And as we have explained time and time again in this room, what we are looking at is whether and how Hungary is complying with different sets of conditions.
Hungary is also threatening to veto the bloc's accession talks with Ukraine, as well as blocking a crucial financial lifeline to Kiev worth €50 billion. Budapest made it clear on Tuesday for the first time that they are ready for some sort of horse trading during Thursday's summit. The political advisor of Prime Minister Viktor Orban says that Hungary would lift its veto on the Ukraine funds if the EU would release all the frozen money, including €21.7 billion of cohesion money and €10 billion in pandemic recovery funds. Leaders of the 4 main political groups in the European Parliament warned the Commission in a letter that the Hungarian justice reforms are not sufficient. They want Commission President Ursula von der Leyen not to give in to blackmailing by the Orban government.
It looks nasty that you release €10 billion to Orban just before the Council. We don't even know if it's kind of a negotiation for some position tomorrow regarding Ukraine. These kind of political games, they are not the way to go with a bully like Orban, with an autocrat like Orban.
Talks between leaders of the 27 member states will start on Ukraine and the Middle East. Many are considering the summit as the most difficult one this year because of Viktor Orban's resistance.
Hungary's right-wing populist government has passed a law, quote, protecting national sovereignty to defend against what the ruling party has called undue political interference by foreign persons or groups. A move slammed by experts.
Annyira általános, hogy olyan szervezetként, amely véleményt alkot a politikáról nyilvánosan, és van nemzetközi kapcsolatrendszere, és azért ezek nem ördögtől való dolgok, ott azért felmerülhet annak a gyanúja, hogy beleesik-e ennek a törvénynek azon passzusaiba, amelyek a nem kívánatos szuverenitás fenyegető veszélyekről szólnak, vagy pedig nem.
The law calls for the creation of a new government authority that will have the power to gather information on any groups or individuals that benefit from foreign funding for election campaigns or groups that might influence public debate.
A szuverenitásvédelmi törvényt elfogadták, azt azonban továbbra sem lehet tudni, hogy a kormány pontosan kiktől szeretné megóvni Magyarországot. Elvégre a törvény szövege alapján akár az Euronews újságíróit is könnyedén külföldi ügynököknek bélyegezhetnék. Siposhegyi Zoltán, Euronews Budapest.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky in Oslo trying to cement more support for his country. Norway's Prime Minister has pledged he will continue to help Kyiv. But Zelensky's main sticking point remains. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is threatening to block the start of talks on Ukraine's accession to the European Union, a matter that requires the unanimous approval of all 27 member states.
He has no any reasons to block Ukrainian membership in EU. And I asked him to tell me one reason, not 3, 5, 10. Tell me one reason. I'm waiting for answer.
Ahead of the EU summit in Brussels, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also warned that Ukraine will be brought to its knees if support drops. This after Republicans in the US Senate blocked an emergency spending bill for Ukraine and Israel last week. Meanwhile, in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron received the Slovenian Prime Minister and called on the EU to give full and lasting support to Ukraine.
Nos deux pays sont déterminés à soutenir l'Ukraine aussi longtemps qu'il le faudra. Ce message, nous le porterons ensemble durant le Conseil européen pour que l'Union soit au rendez-vous du soutien entier et durable à l'Ukraine.
Also on the agenda at the EU Council meeting is the approval of €70 billion in military aid and financial support for Ukraine.
Russian lawmakers have introduced a bill to exclude private clinics from the list of medical organizations that can legally perform abortions. Moscow has successfully cracked down on terminations over the last 6 months. In some regions, quote, coercing abortion is now against the law.
Это без преувеличения настоящее национальное бедствие, уничтожающее будущего нашего общества, разрушающее представление о ценности жизни человека.
Только государство должно контролировать, где, когда и кого убивают в наших клиниках.
But many women in Russia have vocalized their opposition to the ban.
Это отвратительная идея, поскольку будет распространяться подпольная работа поликлиник и больниц, следовательно, будет распространяться смертность среди женщин, что приведет к демографическим проблемам.
Observers say the move is part of a wider initiative to instill certain values across Russia and detract from the war in Ukraine.
Сейчас какая-то начинается предвыборная лихорадка. Кто-то, видимо, решил, что это такая хорошая тема, чтобы отвлечь внимание от каких-то более серьезных тем. Число абортов у нас сократилось в 14 раз с момента распада Союза.
However, Russia's population is in decline, and the country's low fertility rate has been a key priority for the Kremlin since President Putin took power. The new Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, and his cabinet members took office on Wednesday after they were sworn in by the President Andrzej Duda, officially ending 8 years of nationalist populist rule in Poland. Tusk has pledged to restore Poland's position in the European Union.
Panie prezydencie, powiedzieć, że z niezwykłą radością przyjąłem gotowość do pełnej współpracy ze strony pana prezydenta. Każdy bez wyjątku, kto chce działać zgodnie ze słowami przysięgi, jaką dzisiaj tutaj składaliśmy, będzie naszym sojusznikiem, niezależnie od tego, skąd przychodzi, jaką funkcję sprawuje. Nie ma dla nas ważniejszej sprawy niż dobro ojczyzny i pomyślność naszych obywateli.
Tusk's government has challenges ahead. His cabinet must now prepare and approve a general budget in less than 2 weeks and implement important institutional reforms.
Uber drivers or Deliveroo delivery workers? Are they freelance or are they employees of these companies? An agreement between the EU institutions reached Wednesday in Brussels should help answer this question, as it seeks to regulate and improve the working conditions of platform workers. The deal fixes what the criteria are for them to be considered employees of the companies they work for.
Non ci possono essere falsi lavoratori autonomi in giro tra i rider, tra categorie di lavoro che sono tra le più sfruttate, tra le meno pagate, tra le più precarie. O sei un lavoratore autonomo vero, o sei un lavoratore dipendente, ti meriti quelle tutele sociali.
The agreement establishes 5 key indicators, which include whether the company fixes upper limits to the employee's remuneration, supervises their performance through an app, controls the distribution of their tasks, chooses their working hours, and makes them wear corporate clothing. If 2 of these criteria are fulfilled, then workers should be made employees and benefit from social rights, including paid holidays. For some MEPs, one of the difficulties has been dealing with the platform companies.
Les lobbies des plateformes, ils ont réussi à trouver des alliés au sein du Parlement, mais surtout au sein du Conseil de l'Union européenne, donc qui représente les États membres. Et donc, jusqu'au dernier moment, ils ont tout fait pour détricoter, pour saboter la directive. On est passé à 2 doigts, vous savez, d'avoir une directive qui soit pas favorable pour les travailleurs, mais qui soit une directive favorable pour les plateformes, qui soit une directive pro-Uber.
Representatives from the platforms have not replied to Euronews' request for comment, and according to data from the European Parliament, around 5.5 workers are now worryingly misclassified as freelance. The new law will also make algorithms more transparent and clarify for workers how they are used to allocate work, as well as how their personal data is treated.